Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And back with some more headlines as the U.S. is going ahead and initiating this blockade, okay, as they call it, as a result to the at least what they're reporting as failed talks, or they're saying that the talks with the U.S. and Iran didn't really amount to much because they couldn't agree on the uranium. Basically the U.S. is looking at it like, oh, we can't allow them to have a nuclear bomb, so they need to get rid of their uranium enrichment program. And the Iranians didn't seem too fond of that, along with other points of disagreements. But this is the outcome that we're seeing so far. Now, there are some speculatory reports that Iran is considering, this offer, but will it even be in time? Should they even go ahead and consider that, seeing that there is already another escalation rising? So, starting off here, it says, U.S. initiates blockade of Hormuz, Trump warns any Iranian ships coming near will be eliminated. Now, let me show you how ridiculous this sounds, right? They're saying, which let's read this first point here in the summary. Iran's military says the U.S. blockade on Gulf ports now in effect is an illegal act tantamount to piracy, as Trump is also weighing limited strikes on Iran. Trump warns Iranian fast boats will be eliminated. U.S. military says it is enforcing a blockade in the Gulf of Oman and Arabian Sea, Reuters reports. Pentagon says any vessel is subject to interception and capture. So when we look here, all right, let me zoom in on this picture. You have Iran up here, right? This big piece of land right here. And then you have the Persian Gulf, right? Southwest-ish, mainly south of Iran right there. And then you have that little bend, right at the horn of United Arab Emirates, where that is the Strait of Hormuz, that little area right there. And then right on the right side, right, you have the Gulf of Oman. Salaki, along with the Arabian Sea, right? So this is where the U.S. is saying that they have started their blockade to block any ships from going in or out, okay, of Iran here, which would also mean in or out of Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, and United Arab Emirates. And then they're saying this is basically what they're going to do. So now you keep in mind, the United States is, look at this. This is Saudi Arabia, right? You see this little center area here. You have Saudi Arabia, and then you have Yemen south. Then you have you have Africa, right, which is southwest right here, this big chunk, right? And then you have all this body of water before you even go all the way to the west, okay, where you have North America and Central and South America and Canada. You have gone all the way from where your ass was over there to come to somebody else's region to say, now I'm going to block off this. The Gulf of Oman literally borders Iran's southern border. You're saying, I'm going to come here and rest here and block off any transit that's coming in and out of this area. And then you expect there not to be, retaliation. That's a great provocation right there. And then you're saying any boats that approach it, you're going to target. Because what they're trying to push is that Iran having control over the strait. I mean, it's literally right. It's like, I don't even know what to compare it to here, right? But it's literally right on their border. So them having control over it, they were allowing certain ships to pass through, right? Ones that, as they said, were not in favor of the U.S. and Israel and so on. So they were allowing certain ships to pass through, right? They were charging a toll and all of that. Keep in mind, had they not been bombed, all this they wouldn't have closed the strait in the first place. But that's all old news now. So now Trump is, saying that with the U.S. blockade over here, now you can't get in even to the Strait, and if you are in from the Persian Gulf, you can't get out because now they sent what 15, is it here? Yeah, 15, more than 15 warships, right, deployed to Strait of Hormuz to blockade Iran's oil exports. The U.S. has begun enforcing a naval blockade targeting all maritime traffic entering or exiting Iranian ports and coastal areas, including those on the Persian Gulf and Gulf of Oman, effective today. Now, that is going to affect China for sure, okay, because Asia is one of the continents, at least that when you go back here, they depend on the flow of, exports out of this region, especially with energy. And China has already said, "Hey, listen, they're gonna keep getting their stuff out of here because they need it." So this is gonna cause even more conflict because the U.S. they said this they were gonna do an impartial blocking of all vessels. Impartial meaning that you're not gonna say like, okay, you are an ally, so you can go through. You're a foe, so you can't go through. That's partial. Impartial is it doesn't matter who you are. So it says here, according to Wall Street Journal and other outlets, indicate that more than 15 U.S. warships have been positioned to surge to the region to support the operation. This includes elements of carrier strike groups, example, USS Abraham Lincoln and its escorts, with guided missile destroyers visible in satellite imagery near the Gulf of Oman. At least two Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, such as USS Frank E. Peterson and USS Michael Murphy, and then, basically listing the kind of vessels that they're sending over there. All right, so let's go back to this first article here. So reading this again, right, U.S. military says it is enforcing the blockade in the Gulf of Oman and Arabian Sea. Reuters reports, Pentagon says any vessel is subject to interception and capture. And you're going to have a lot of nations that are not going to be happy with that. In fact, you have some that have already spoken out against this. Interestingly enough, you would think that this would be, maybe from ones that are nations that have been known to oppose the U.S., but no, it's just actually coming from the opposite. Okay. Pundits review breakdown of Pakistan talks where the gaps were enormous, yet Iran's foreign minister says the sides were inches away from an Islamabad MOU. Israel-Hezbollah fighting persists on eve of planned Tuesday talks in Washington between Israeli and Lebanese officials. So, I mean, there's the information for you. Like I said, that blockade is that's going to be another another escalation right there. Because now, even if Iran was to say, okay, you can go through the strait, now the U.S. is there saying, yeah, no. U.S. allies loudly reject Trump's scheme to blockade Hormuz, quote, not getting dragged in. Now, what's also interesting is he can very well say, well, hold on. When I was calling you to come and help us open the strait, all of you said no. And now I've sent ships here, and now they're blockading it, and now you got a problem? Now you want to open your mouth and say something? No. Now I'm in control of this thing. The United Kingdom and several other countries rejected Washington's plan to impose a blockade on Iranian ports and target ships transiting the Strait of Hormuz, which has gone into effect Monday, that is today. Prime Minister Keir Starmer made clear his stance that we are not supporting the blockade. In a fresh interview with BBC Radio, he emphasized that the UK is not getting dragged in to the U.S.-Israeli war against Iran. Oh, but guess what? That's exactly what's going to happen. That's the whole point of the prophecy in Jeremiah 49. The least of the flock shall draw them out. They're saying they're not getting dragged in. Watch what happens. Just keep watching. They're gonna end up there. So regardless of what they're saying, they will get dragged in, whether they like it or yes. But still stated that it's vital that we get the strait open and fully. So, and I think not just the UK, but yeah, Spain as well, right? It says, as fully expected, Spain's government also condemned the U.S. move, with the country's defense minister Margarita Robles, uh, or Robles, having said, "It's just another episode in this downward spiral we've slipped into," adding that Trump and Netanyahu want to impose rules on the international community, which is illegal or illogical, I should say, right? And it goes to show you, right, that their power grab is beyond, co-rulership or basically international relationships. No, no, no. They want to be the dominant power. And this like I said, this is gonna draw in more countries, bigger countries, because they are getting affected. What's also interesting here is Trump reportedly planning mass pardons of administration officials before leaving office. And the question is, why? Right? What exactly are they either doing or planning to do, which they anticipate or he knows is going to be so bad, but to get them on board, he has to tell them, no, you're going to be fine. Don't worry about it. Just go ahead with it. We implement this, we do this, we do that. But sir, that's against the Constitution. Listen, don't worry about it. All right. We're gonna take care of all that. So when you typically when you see things like this, it means there's something very wrong going on behind the scenes. But in order to keep those in his administration continuing to do it, all right, or be on board, you make a statement like this, or you try to reassure them. Right? It says Donald Trump has reportedly promised to pardon virtually his entire White House staff before leaving office. So he's letting you know what we're about to do. We need you to all be on board. And don't worry about the consequences. We'll take care of that. And the radius keeps growing. What started as a quip about anyone within 10 feet of the Oval Office has ballooned into something considerably more sweeping. So keep an eye on that. And as they start to dive deeper into the draconian end of things, that's going to be, don't be surprised. Okay. Remember that he did say this to them. So don't be surprised. Another interesting turn of events here. This is, where is this? Atlanta? Mother effing robot dogs in the mother effing hood. So here what you have is, it looks like it's some might be a private company. Maybe that was hired. And now they're using robot dogs as security in this apartment parking lot, right? And it's operated by some operator, who's remote controlling it live from wherever they are. Residents in Atlanta are staring down robot dogs patrolling their own apartment parking lots, with live foreign operators apparently calling the shots through the machines. So I'm gonna play this video real quick so we can hear it.
Now they got the motherfucking robot dog in the motherfucking hood patrolling the apartment. What the fuck type of AI shit it is? What the fuck? He look like he finna bite your ass.
Yo. Hello?
Oh, baby, they
How are you?
Where are you at?
This a person only.
So, what y'all got this robot dog in here for?
To watch the people so they don't take.
Oh, sorry. So we're actually like the robotic security dog here.
So, what y'all got to tell us?
everything is being monitored and recorded.
Hi.
Hi.
So this is how it starts, right? And it sounds like it's all fun and games. But when you see these during the time of martial law, they're not going to have just this little, hey, how are you doing? No. You don't be surprised when you see them mounted with actual guns, okay, lethal. And they're moving around patrolling, and they're letting off shots, along with the drones, along with the actual humanoid robots. This is a robot dog. But you also have humanoid robots. Those are robots that like stand, they have hands, they look like humans. And they've developed some that can actually run like freaking professional sprinters. Difference is they don't get tired. So It's all funny and it's fun and games now, right? But this is how it starts. So this is like it looks like it's some private security company or something they hired. That's just what it looks like to me. But you have companies like Boston Dynamics, and they're just one of many, that are developing actively this merging of artificial intelligence and humanoid or just robotic technology. So when you start seeing these patrolling streets, when they declare martial law and they have the curfews, and you start seeing these but with guns mounted on their back, and they start firing off warning shots at your ass, then you'll see what why they got him in the hood. And speaking of which, lastly, you have here the FAA green lights laser sentry guns to combat attack drones in U.S. airspace. This is kind of interesting. This is kind of interesting here, and this is interesting because of why they basically gave the green light on this, right? Meaning whatever so-called threat that they're trying to combat with this, they're not really trying to sound a loud alarm on this, but they have been reports about this, which at least they're claiming to be drones, right? Drones either sent from or let's say Iran-backed drones. Okay, let's put it that way. The Federal Aviation Administration has given the green light for U.S. military to deploy high-energy counter-drone laser weapons in U.S. airspace, adding a new low-cost layer of protection against the rising threat of kamikaze drones. But rising threat of kamikaze drones from who? Where? Okay. Oh, as a matter of fact, hold up. We got some more breaking. Let me put this up on here real quick. So we'll come back to this. Matter of fact, let me just wrap this up. There was a part in here I did want to read. Right down here, it says the statement did not address whether the agency had determined that the high energy lasers pose no physical risk to aircraft, or whether the safety administration was based on how the lasers were being deployed. But FAA determined that the risk would be minimal even if the laser came in contact with an airplane. That's all cool. Now here it is. In this paragraph, the decision paves the way for broader use of these 20 to 35 kilowatt class laser weapon systems along the southern border to combat drug cartel drones and one-way attack drones. These threats have caused alarm at the highest levels in Washington, especially following the use of drones by Iran in the Gulf area to target data centers, civilian infrastructure, and U.S. military bases. Now, remember, not too long ago, the FBI came out talking about warning California that Iran could be potentially launching or plan to launch drones to basically attack right off that coast. So they're talking about what cartel, drug cartel drones that they were. That's not what they're worried about. Okay, they're using this either in preparation for a false FF or for some threat that they're just not trying to sound the alarm for. So there's these are the actions they're taking. Now, why would you? This is not cheap, right? It's not free either. You got to go through a whole process to get this green lighted or get this passed. So if there's no threat at all, everything is all sweet and dandy. Why now? And why would you go through this whole process to set this up? Anyway, this just popped up here. Let's take a look. So it says China has issued a strong warning to U.S. reinstating that China has an energy agreement with Iran and its ships will not be intercepted. Chinese Defense Ministry: Chinese ships continue to move in and out of the waters of the Strait of Hormuz. We have trade and energy agreements with Iran, which we will respect and abide by. We expect others not to interfere in our affairs. Iran controls the Strait of Hormuz and has opened it to us. So you see why this is a escalation, because if the U.S. is blocking the Gulf of Oman, which this is controlled by Iran, it should be controlled by Iran, or at least, as it has been, because it's literally on their border and they have the power to close it or open it. So China says, we made a deal with Iran, so we're getting energy. Our ships are able to go through. Now you have become another obstacle, and you're basically trying to it's not like now it's a matter of whether we jump in to help Iran or not. Now it's a matter of us protecting our interests because you are now an obstacle, a hindrance. What was the whole point of making a deal with Iran and being able to get our ships to go through if now you, who have no business in our deal, come here and say, well, too bad, they can't go through, we're going to intercept them. So look out, and don't be surprised if you start to have some back and forth now involving China and any other parties here that are in a similar situation due to either some Chinese ships that are intercepted or some back and forths between those two parties over there with the U.S. because that's gonna once again, let's go back to that warning. All right, what did they say? They strongly issued that warning, that strong warning to the U.S. because now this is direct conflict with the U.S. because they're the ones who are issuing this blockade. Okay, so all these things are happening, and as it says in Habakkuk, the 2nd chapter, though it tarry, referring to the vision, these prophecies, wait for it, for it will surely come, it will not tarry, right? Which is to slow down. So these things we're seeing happening, they've been declared from old, from the beginning. But now is the time when they're manifesting. Now is the time for them to be fulfilled. This is Isaiah chapter 46, verse 9. Remember the former things of old, for I am God, and there is none else. I am God, and there is none like me, declaring the end from the beginning. So how do we know the things that are going to happen in the end, or the things that are happening now and the things that are going to follow after? Because they've already been declared by the Heavenly Father, and he has given us the understanding, right? He had those that it was declared to via visions and messages. He had them write it down, and now we have the understanding. So we're able to, he has revealed that declaration to us. And from ancient times, the things that have not yet, that are not yet done, that's future, that's prophecy, saying, my counsel shall stand, and I will do all my pleasure. So this is how we know these things are going to continue to escalate, because this is the counsel of the Lord. And man cannot overturn the counsel of the Heavenly Father. So with that, I'm going to end it here. Lord willing, that was edifying and informative to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham Racha Kodash. Until next time, Shalom.